An HOA president shot my pregnant daughter in cold blood. An HOA president's need for control turned into something absolutely terrifying. What began as petty rule enforcement slowly became a dangerous campaign of revenge against one innocent family, when a pregnant daughter sat peacefully on her front porch, waiting for baby shower guests to arrive. Nobody could have imagined that violence would shatter the afternoon. A gunshot rang out, breaking the peaceful silence. A mother desperately fighting to save her unborn child's life. A woman so consumed by rage that she was willing to destroy everything and everyone in her path. This is the true story of how one person's obsession with power led to attempted murder, a dramatic courtroom trial, and ultimately a life sentence behind bars. Justice was served, but the cost was almost unbearable. Before I share the complete story with you, please comment below and let me know what country you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories like this one. The afternoon sun was casting gentle shadows across our backyard as I carefully hung the last pink balloon on the pergola. My daughter Emma, 7 months pregnant with her very first child, sat comfortably in a cushioned chair. One hand rested protectively on her swollen belly, while she directed the decoration placement with the radiant smile that only an expectant mother can have. "Mom, can you move those flowers just a little bit to the left?" she called out, her voice absolutely filled with the joy and anticipation that comes with waiting for a baby. I adjusted the beautiful arrangement of white roses and delicate baby's breath, my heart practically overflowing with happiness. After so many years of struggling with infertility treatments and heartbreaking disappointments, Emma and her husband Michael were finally going to become parents. This baby shower was so much more than just a celebration. It was a miracle we had all prayed for, hoped for, and waited for. Perfect. Emma sighed contentedly, gently rubbing her belly. Little Sophie is going to absolutely love hearing about this special day someday. The guests were scheduled to arrive in just about an hour. Everything was completely ready and picture perfect. Pink and white streamers danced gracefully in the warm breeze. A beautiful 3-tier cake sat proudly on the dessert table like a work of art. Tiny finger sandwiches and colorful fruit platters lined the buffet table. It should have been the most perfect day imaginable. That's when I heard the sharp, angry voice coming from over the fence. "What do you think you're doing?" I turned around to see Karen Thornwood, our neighborhood HOA president, standing right at the property line with her arms crossed tightly. Her face was twisted in absolute fury, her eyes blazing with an anger that seemed completely excessive, even by her notoriously strict standards. Karen had made our lives absolutely miserable from the moment we moved into Willowbrook Estates 3 years ago. Every single minor violation, every blade of grass that grew an inch too long, every package that was left on the porch for more than 2 hours, it all resulted in a formal citation and a fine. She prowled through the neighborhood like some kind of tyrant, measuring hedges with an actual ruler, photographing garbage cans that were left out even 5 minutes past the collection time, and calling emergency board meetings over something as trivial as the color of someone's mailbox. But we had been so careful this time, so incredibly careful about following every single rule. "We're having a baby shower, Karen," I said as calmly as I could manage, though my stomach was already tightening with dread. "Is there some kind of problem?" "A problem?" Her voice rose shrilly, like nails on a chalkboard. "You didn't submit the proper form for an outdoor gathering." Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the HOA bylaws clearly states that any outdoor event with more than 5 people in attendance requires written approval submitted at least 14 days in advance. Emma struggled to push herself up from the chair, her face going noticeably pale. Michael immediately rushed to her side, supporting her carefully. "Karen, we submitted that form 3 full weeks ago," Michael said firmly, trying to keep his voice level. "You approved it yourself. I still have the email confirmation to prove it. I did no such thing." Karen's face flushed a deep crimson. "And even if I did, which I absolutely didn't too, violated the noise ordinances. I can hear music all the way from my house." The small speaker was playing soft instrumental music at barely audible volume. Karen lived 4 full houses down the street. There was absolutely no way she could genuinely hear it. The music is well within all acceptable levels, I said, forcing myself to keep my voice steady and calm. Karen, please, this is my daughter's baby shower. Can we please discuss this tomorrow instead? Tomorrow? She laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and cruel. You people think you can just do whatever you want, don't you? You think the rules don't apply to your family? Well, I'm calling the police right now to shut this entire thing down immediately. Emma's eyes instantly filled with tears. Please, Karen, we have guests coming any minute now. I've been planning this celebration for months. We followed every single rule in the book. Don't you dare cry at me. Karen spat out the words with pure venom. Manipulative little brat. You young people are all exactly the same. No respect for order. No respect for the community standards we've worked so hard to maintain. Something in her words, in the pure venom behind them, sent an ice-cold chill straight down my spine. This wasn't really about permits, or noise levels, or following procedures. This was deeply personal. This was deliberately cruel. Michael pulled out his phone quickly. I'm showing you the approval email right this second. Get that phone out of my face. Karen shrieked loudly. She turned on her heel and stormed away, shouting over her shoulder as she went, "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." Emma collapsed back into her chair, sobbing openly now. Why does she hate us so much? What did we ever do to her to deserve this treatment? I knelt down beside my daughter, gently wiping away her tears. Don't let her ruin your special day, sweetheart. The guests will be here very soon. Let's focus on celebrating baby Sophie and all the joy she's bringing us. But the joy had already been poisoned, contaminated by Karen's hatred. Even as guests began arriving with beautifully wrapped gifts and warm wishes, even as Emma forced smiles and opened presents, I could clearly see the worry lingering in her eyes. She kept glancing nervously toward the street, half expecting police cars that thankfully never came. The shower continued without any further incident. We played fun games, ate delicious cake, and Emma opened the most adorable tiny clothes and stuffed animals. By evening, after the last guest had finally left, I thought perhaps Karen's threat had been nothing but empty words. I was completely wrong. 3 days later, we received a certified letter in the mail. Karen was fining us $5,000 for an unauthorized gathering and disturbing the peace. Attached to the letter were a dozen photographs she had personally taken of the baby shower from the street, along with fabricated noise complaints from neighbors who later told us directly they had never spoken to Karen about any disturbance whatsoever. Michael immediately hired a lawyer. The HOA board meeting turned into an absolute nightmare. Karen sat at the head of the long table like a queen sitting on her throne, surrounded by board members who were clearly terrified of crossing her or facing her wrath. She presented falsified documents claiming that the approval email Michael had was somehow doctored or forged. She even produced a completely different version of the bylaws that somehow, magically appeared only that night for the first time. Our lawyers systematically destroyed every single one of her arguments. Other neighbors bravely testified on our behalf, sharing their own stories of Karen's harassment. The board had absolutely no choice but to dismiss the ridiculous fine and issue Karen a formal warning for harassment and abuse of power. That's when her obsession with destroying us turned truly dangerous. Over the next 6 weeks, as Emma's pregnancy progressed into her final month, Karen waged what can only be described as a calculated campaign of terror against our family. She filed completely false reports with code enforcement, claiming we had illegal structures in our yard. Inspectors came out multiple times and found absolutely nothing wrong. She called animal control with lies, claiming our elderly, sweet-tempered golden retriever was vicious and running around unleashed. Officers came and found him peacefully sleeping on the front porch. She reported Michael's car as abandoned, even though he drove it to work every single day. She even called Child Protective Services with anonymous allegations of child endangerment before our baby was even born. Each false report was thoroughly investigated and quickly dismissed. But the constant stress was absolutely devastating for Emma. Her blood pressure began spiking dangerously. Her doctor put her on strict bed rest. The pregnancy that had been perfectly healthy and normal was now suddenly classified as high risk. "She's trying to make me lose the baby," Emma whispered one night, tears streaming endlessly down her face. "She wants to take Sophie from me before I even get to meet her." "That won't happen," I promised her, though rage was burning hot in my chest. "We're getting a restraining order immediately." But restraining orders take time to process. Court dates were still weeks away, and Karen somehow knew she had a narrow window of opportunity. The attack came on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. Emma was sitting peacefully on our front porch in her favorite wooden rocking chair, enjoying the warm breeze and sunshine. She was due to give birth in just 2 weeks. Her hospital bag was already packed and waiting by the door. The nursery was completely ready, painted a soft yellow, with a white crib and a changing table. She rested one hand on her belly, feeling Sophie kick and move around inside her. I was inside the house making lunch when I suddenly heard Emma scream a sound of pure terror that I'll never forget. I dropped everything and ran straight to the front door. What I saw in that moment will haunt me until my very last breath on this earth. Karen stood in our front yard, her face completely contorted with insane fury. In her hand was a small pistol, pointing directly at my pregnant daughter. "You ruined my life," Karen shrieked at the top of her lungs. "The board removed me as president. They said I was unfit to serve. Because of you. Because of your lies and manipulation." Emma tried desperately to stand up, to run to safety, but she was too pregnant, too heavy, too slow. "Karen, please," Emma begged, her voice shaking with terror. "You destroyed everything I worked for." Karen raised the gun with shaking hands, her finger on the trigger. "If I can't have my position, if I can't have the respect I deserve, then you can't have your perfect little family either." "No," I screamed, running forward as fast as my legs could carry me. The gunshot cracked through the air like thunder, echoing through the entire neighborhood. Emma clutched her stomach with both hands, her eyes going wide with shock and unbearable pain. Blood immediately bloomed across her white maternity dress, spreading outward like spilled wine. "Emma," I caught her just as she collapsed, lowering her as gently as I could to the porch floor. Her blood was hot and sticky on my hands. "Someone call 911. Call 911 right now." Neighbors burst from their houses, running toward us. Michael came sprinting from the garage, where he had been organizing baby supplies. His anguished scream when he saw Emma covered in blood was the sound of a soul completely breaking apart. "Stay with me, baby," I begged desperately, pressing my hands hard against the wound, trying my best to stop the bleeding that wouldn't stop. "Stay with me. Think of Sophie. Think of your baby girl." Emma's lips were pale, her breathing becoming shallow and labored. "Mom, it hurts so much. The baby, ... I heard more screaming behind me. Our neighbor, Mr. Rodriguez, had tackled Karen hard to the ground, wrestling the gun from her hand. She fought like a wild rabid animal, shrieking and clawing at him, but he held her down firmly until police arrived just moments later. "You'll pay for this," Karen screamed as officers handcuffed her roughly. "All of you will pay for what you did to me. I'll make sure of it." But I didn't care one bit about Karen's threats in that moment. All I cared about was my daughter and granddaughter bleeding out in my arms, their lives slipping away. The ambulance arrived in what felt like hours but was probably only 4 or 5 minutes. Paramedics worked frantically and urgently, starting 4 lines, applying pressure, but Emma couldn't hear me. She was lost somewhere in a medically induced coma, her body shut down to give it the best chance to survive. The police came that same evening. Detectives asked us to recount every single detail of what had happened. I told them everything about Karen's harassment campaign, the HOA battle, all the false reports, and the escalating threats. "Karen Thornwood is in custody," the detective informed us. She's been charged with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and attempted murder of an unborn child. She's being held without any possibility of bail. Good, Michael said, his voice completely hollow and empty. She tried to kill my wife and daughter. She should never see daylight again. The detectives spent many hours gathering evidence. They interviewed every single neighbor, collected all of Karen's obsessive documentation, and reviewed her increasingly unhinged emails and text messages. What emerged was a disturbing portrait of a woman whose entire identity and self-worth were completely wrapped up in her tiny sphere of power and control. When that power was threatened and taken away, she had completely snapped. They searched Karen's home and found a journal in her office. Page after page was filled with rants about our family. She had been actively stalking us for months, documenting our every single move, building elaborate conspiracy theories in her mind about how we were supposedly plotting to destroy her life. She had written detailed plans for how to make us suffer, how to take away everything we loved. The entry from the morning of the shooting was absolutely chilling. Today they will finally learn what loss truly means. Today they will understand that no one crosses Karen Thornwood without severe consequences. If I cannot have my life back, then they cannot have theirs either. She purchased the gun 3 weeks ago, the detective explained to us. Took shooting lessons at a range, practiced regularly. This wasn't just a moment of rage or temporary insanity. This was carefully premeditated attempted murder. With the evidence we have, the DA is very confident of getting a conviction. The days that followed were pure agony for our entire family. Emma remained in critical condition, fighting for her life hour by hour. Dangerous infections set in. Her damaged liver struggled to function. Her blood pressure spiked and dropped unpredictably. Twice, the doctors warned us gravely to prepare ourselves for the very worst outcome. But little Sophie grew stronger with each passing day. Each day in the NICU she gained precious ounces. She started breathing more and more on her own. The tubes came out one by one as she improved. When I held her for the first time, feeling her tiny warmth pressed against my chest, I wept so hard that the nurses had to gently take her back. "Your daughter is a true hero," one experienced nurse told me quietly. Even while she was dying, her body was directing all its resources to protect the baby. She gave absolutely everything to keep Sophie alive. I spent countless hours sitting between the ICU and the NICU, dividing my time between my unconscious daughter and my fighting granddaughter. Michael practically lived at the hospital, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, eating terrible vending machine food, refusing to leave Emma's side for more than just a few minutes at a time. Emma's close friends created a rotation schedule among themselves, bringing us home-cooked food, fresh clothes, and sitting with us during the long, dark hours when hope felt absolutely impossible to hold on to. The same neighbors who had testified against Karen at the HOA meeting now gave detailed statements to police, ensuring that Karen's entire harassment campaign was fully documented for the upcoming trial. The hospital chaplain visited regularly, offering prayers and genuine comfort. I'm not particularly religious myself, but in those desperate hours, I prayed like I'd never prayed before. I begged, I bargained, I promised anything and everything if Emma and Sophie could both just survive. On the 5th day, Emma's condition finally began to stabilize somewhat. The infection started responding to the antibiotics. Her liver function improved slightly, showing small signs of healing. The doctors allowed themselves some cautious optimism. "She's not out of the woods yet by any means," the trauma surgeon told us honestly, "but she's fighting incredibly hard. She's showing us she desperately wants to live." On the 8th day, they carefully lifted Emma's sedation. Slowly, agonizingly, she began to wake up from the coma. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened, not understanding where she was. "Mom." Her voice was barely a rasp through the breathing tube still in her throat. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here beside you." I squeezed her hand gently. "Sophie." Panic immediately filled her eyes, that mother's instinct kicking in instantly. "She's okay." She's beautiful and perfect, and getting stronger every single day. You saved her, Emma. You saved your baby girl. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes and rolled down her pale cheeks. They removed the breathing tube the very next day. Emma's first real words that she could speak were, "I want to see my baby." They wheeled her hospital bed to the NICU 2 days later. Emma was still very weak, still in considerable pain, still connected to multiple monitors and 4 lines, but absolutely nothing could have stopped her from meeting her daughter. When Emma saw Sophie for the first time since the shooting, she sobbed so hard the nurses became worried about her blood pressure spiking. But these were healing tears, relief tears, tears of pure love. "Hi, baby girl," Emma whispered, reaching through the incubator port to touch Sophie's tiny hand. "Mommy's here. I'm so sorry it took so long, but I'm here now, and I'm never leaving you." Sophie's tiny fingers wrapped around Emma's finger and held on tight. And in that profound moment, I knew deep in my heart they would both survive this. Not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually too. They would carry terrible scars. Yes, Emma had a long, difficult road of recovery still ahead of her. Sophie would grow up hearing about the traumatic day she was born, but they were together. They were alive, and that was everything. 8 months after the shooting, Karen Thornwood's trial finally began. The district attorney had built what they called an ironclad case. The evidence was absolutely overwhelming. The journal entries show premeditation, the shooting lessons, the calculated purchase of a gun weeks in advance. Eyewitness testimony from multiple neighbors who saw everything. Emma insisted on attending the trial, despite her therapist's serious concerns about the psychological impact. "I need to face her," Emma said with determination. "I need her to see with her own eyes that she failed to destroy us." The courtroom was packed full every single day. Neighbors filled the gallery, many of them wearing pink ribbons in solidarity with Emma and Sophie. Karen sat at the defense table in an orange prison jumpsuit, her face hard and completely unrepentant. Not a trace of remorse. Her lawyer tried desperately to argue temporary insanity, claiming Karen had suffered a complete mental breakdown after losing her HOA president position. But the prosecution systematically destroyed that defense with Karen's own written words, months of calculated planning, cold deliberation, and clear intent to kill. I'll never forget the moment Emma took the witness stand. She was still using a cane, still moving carefully to protect her healing injuries. But her voice was strong and clear as she recounted the shooting. "I was sitting on my porch, feeling my baby move inside me, thinking about what color to paint the nursery," Emma testified. "Then I looked up and saw Karen standing in our yard with a gun pointed at me. I tried to run, but I was too pregnant to move fast. She said if she couldn't have her life back, I couldn't have my family. Then she shot me." "Did you fear for your life?" the prosecutor asked. "I feared for my daughter's life," Emma replied firmly. "I knew I might die, but all I could think about in that moment was protecting Sophie. Even after the bullet hit me, my only thought was keeping my baby alive." Karen showed absolutely no emotion during Emma's testimony, no remorse whatsoever, no recognition of the horror she'd caused. She sat stone-faced as if she were the victim in all of this. The prosecution called neighbor after neighbor who testified about Karen's harassment, her obsessive need for control, and her escalating threats over the months. They showed the jury Karen's journal, and let them read her own words about wanting to destroy our family. Medical experts testified about Emma's severe injuries, the emergency surgery, and the absolute miracle that Sophie survived it all. The NICU doctor explained in detail how Emma's body had prioritized protecting the baby even while Emma herself was actively dying. The defense had virtually nothing to counter with. Their insanity plea crumbled under the enormous weight of evidence, showing Karen's careful, methodical planning. Their character witnesses, Karen's husband and sister, could barely muster even lukewarm defenses of her character. When it came time for Karen to testify, her lawyer strongly advised against it, but Karen insisted on taking the stand. She testified with the exact same arrogance she'd had as HOA president. They deserved what happened, Karen said coldly, when asked if she regretted her actions. They disrespected the rules. They undermined my authority. They got exactly what was coming to them. The entire courtroom gasped audibly. Even her own lawyer looked absolutely horrified. The prosecutor seized the moment immediately. So you feel no remorse whatsoever for shooting a pregnant woman, for nearly killing an innocent unborn child? I feel remorse that my aim wasn't better, Karen replied without hesitation. That single statement sealed her fate completely. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before reaching its verdict. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder of Emma. Attempted murder of an unborn child. Assault with a deadly weapon. Stalking. Harassment. At sentencing 3 weeks later, the judge was absolutely scathing in his remarks. Mrs. Thornwood, I have presided over many criminal cases during my career, but rarely have I seen such cold-blooded premeditation combined with such complete lack of remorse. The judge said sternly, you stalked this family for months. You planned this attack carefully. You purchased a weapon specifically to harm them. And when given the opportunity to show remorse, you expressed only regret that you didn't succeed in killing them. He paused, looking directly at Karen with disgust. You are a clear danger to society. You have shown you are completely incapable of rehabilitation. This court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your natural life behind bars, where you can harm no one else ever again. Karen's face finally cracked, not with remorse, but with rage. This is injustice. She screamed as bailiffs grabbed her arms. I'm the victim here. They destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life, the judge said coldly, and you nearly destroyed theirs. Bailiffs, remove her from my courtroom immediately. As they dragged Karen away, still screaming about injustice and conspiracies, Emma reached for my hand. Tears streamed down her face, but these were tears of pure relief. It's finally over, she whispered. She can never hurt us again. The neighborhood changed dramatically after Karen's conviction. The HOA dissolved completely and reformed with strict limits on board authority. New bylaws required background checks, term limits, and proper oversight committees. Karen's reign of terror became a cautionary tale about what happens when petty power corrupts absolutely. Our neighbors rallied around us in beautiful ways. They organized meal trains, babysitting schedules, and fundraisers to help with Emma's mounting medical bills. The community that Karen had tried to control through fear came together in love and genuine support. One former neighbor, Mrs. Chen, shared that Karen had filed false complaints that nearly cost them their home. Another family revealed that Karen had tried to get their teenage son arrested for vandalism he didn't commit. The pattern was crystal clear. Karen saw any challenge to her authority as a declaration of war, and we were just her final, most extreme target. Emma's physical recovery took well over a year. She still has visible scars across her abdomen, permanent reminders of the day that almost took everything from her. She struggles with PTSD. Therapy helps considerably, but some wounds never fully heal. But Sophie thrives beautifully. At 2.5 years old now, she's a happy, energetic toddler with her mother's bright smile and her father's determination. She loves books and dolls and chasing our old golden retriever around the yard. She has no memory of her traumatic birth, no understanding of the evil that tried to prevent her existence. Emma decided to become a victim's advocate, channeling her pain into purpose. She speaks at support groups, helps other trauma survivors navigate the complex legal system, and shares her story to raise awareness about harassment and stalking. If Sophie has to grow up knowing what happened, Emma told me once, then I want her to also see how we turned something terrible into something that helps others. I want her to understand that survival isn't just about living, it's about choosing to make life better despite what tried to destroy you. Emma is pregnant again with another girl. We're cautious, protective, very aware of how quickly joy can turn to tragedy. But we're also hopeful. We're survivors, after all. She's chosen the name Grace, because that's what we were given, Emma explained. Grace to survive, grace to heal, grace to love again, despite everything that happened. Last week, we had a birthday party for Sophie in our backyard. Pink balloons danced in the breeze, just like they had at that baby shower that changed everything forever. But this time, there was no angry voice from over the fence. No threat of fines or police calls. Just children laughing, adults talking, and Sophie covered in birthday cake, giggling with pure happiness. Emma sat in the same chair where she had been shot 2.5 years earlier. She watched her daughter play, one hand unconsciously resting on her growing belly. I saw her touch the scar through her shirt, a habit she's developed when processing difficult emotions. "Are you okay?" I asked, sitting beside her. She was quiet for a long moment, watching Sophie chase bubbles. "I'm angry," she finally said honestly. "I'm angry that Karen took so much from us. That Sophie's birth story is trauma instead of joy. That I have scars and nightmares. That my daughter will grow up knowing someone tried to kill her before she was even born." She paused, watching Sophie chase bubbles with delighted squeals. "But I'm also grateful," Emma continued, her voice strengthening. "Sophie is alive. I'm alive. We have another baby coming. Karen wanted to destroy us, to take everything, but she failed. We're still here. We're still a family. And every single day, that's a victory." Meanwhile, 200 miles away in the State Women's Correctional Facility, Karen Thornwood sits in a prison cell serving her life sentence without any possibility of parole. According to occasional news reports, she has refused all rehabilitation programs, declined therapy, and maintains to anyone who will listen that she is the true victim. Prison guards report that she tries to run her cell block the way she ran the HOA, making demands, filing complaints, and insisting on rules that don't exist. Other inmates have learned to avoid her completely. Her husband divorced her 6 months after her conviction. Her children no longer visit or take her calls. She will die in that prison. That is her legacy, a woman so consumed by the need to control others that she destroyed herself and nearly destroyed an innocent family in the process. But we refuse to let her have any more space in our lives than absolutely necessary. We don't visit. We don't write. We don't follow the news about her. Karen Thornwood is exactly where she belongs, and we have moved forward without her shadow over us. Emma keeps a journal now, writing letters to both her daughters about strength, about survival, about the power of choosing hope, even when despair seems so much easier. One day, Sophie and Grace will read these letters and understand the depth of their mother's love, the cost of their safety, the miracle of their existence. Michael framed the first photo ever taken of Emma holding Sophie in the NICU. It sits on their mantle as a powerful reminder of how far they've come. In the photo, Emma looks exhausted, pale, and still recovering from surgery. But her smile, as she gazes at her tiny daughter, is pure radiance. Our family will always carry the scars of that terrible day. But we also carry something Karen never expected: unbreakable bonds forged in fire. Love that deepened through trauma, and the absolute certainty that we can survive anything as long as we face it together. Karen is in prison for life. That part of the story is closed. But our story continues, one filled with Sophie's laughter, Grace's impending arrival, Emma's ongoing healing, and the knowledge that we faced the worst humanity had to offer. It came out stronger on the other side. That's the real ending. Not Karen's imprisonment, though that brought justice. The real ending is every morning Emma wakes up to Sophie's laughter. Every time she feels Grace kick inside her. Every moment, she chooses joy despite the memories of horror. Karen wanted to write our story as a tragedy. Instead, we've written it as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unstoppable power of a mother's love. And we're still writing it, one hopeful day at a time. While Karen sits alone in her cell, powerless to harm anyone ever again.